Right.
Just think about swimming through your brain as opposed to being only able to see a flat image of your brain.
Right.
It makes all the difference in the world.
Ron Schilling, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders.
Nice to be here.
Great to have you. You have such a wealth of experience, over 35 years in the medical imaging technology sector. You've led incredible achievements within Toshiba Medical and General Electric Medical, masters at Princeton, a PhD back in Polytechnic, now it's NYU. Ron, give me a brief rundown of what you've done in this medical devices technology industry. And I'd love to spend the next 19 minutes or so learning myself as much as I can over this industry.
Okay. Well, I started out at General Electric in the medical field after having coming out of the semiconductor field. And GE wanted me for semiconductors, but we didn't make a go of that because there was a very bad market condition in 74. In 76, they asked me again, how about the CAT scanner? And I said, oh my goodness, what is that? I asked friends of mine, they said, very high risk, but very high reward if it does work properly. And sure enough, CT became an incredible reward for all. The thing about it at General Electric was that the general manager of the business that I was in, the overall medical business, had an opportunity to become chairman of the company if the CT business did well. That was Jack Welch, a very famous name today. Unfortunately, we lost him about 8 months ago. And I came in there and took on the marketing organization for the GECT program. And I went and spoke to customers because having come from the semiconductor industry, you always got out there to talk to
So I
customers.
have a question, Ron. Just paint me a picture. What year are we? And is CT a common thing around the US at that point?
No, 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 no. And that was 1976. CT was just getting started.
So and today it's practically at every hospital, right?
Everywhere you go,
Okay. So
everywhere
and so
you go.
you're really a pioneer in introducing the CT to the
Yeah,
American market, right?
right. So in getting out there and talking to customers, they told me that they were very concerned because this is a new device for them.
Right.
They were used to basic X-ray. But what they explained to me was that CT is about systems, applications, and service, not just the technology. So to me, the whole game was all about quality. Quality of getting our systems to work the very best of anyone else's system.
Right.
We may not have had the very best technology, but because we had a large organization in X-ray, we had the best performance out there in the field. And we won very big. We were number one in the United States. A lot of companies came into the marketplace. They went out of the marketplace,
Right.
leaving the standard companies working with us.
What was the deciding factor in helping GE win? Aside, of course, you leading the endeavor, but what were the deciding factors that made you come on top versus your competitors? In
It was the
retrospect, of course,
quality. It was the quality of the images.
it was purely the quality of the product.
Absolutely. And we worked very closely with customers. That was another thing. We called it the clinical technical tie. That is, there's a clinical need. And we understood the customer's need almost as well as they did because we spoke to many customers. And clinical technical tie means bring the technology to the customer situation and create the right solution for the right job.
Okay.
So we had the best brain imaging, we had the best body imaging, we had the best knee imaging, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We were very applications oriented.
Right.
And that was a very, very important aspect of that, something that I came away with from the semiconductor industry.
Wow.
Then as I moved up into GE's medical organization, I was in charge of strategic planning. And at that time, GE was like number 3 in the world.
Wow.
And Jack Welch, again, to become chairman, wanted us to become number 1 in the world. That was his goal. And to do that, I looked around, took some calculations of the various markets in the world, and it was very clear that you had to get Japan. And I looked around in Japan and I found that Hewlett Packard, the company I had a lot of respect for, already had a partner called Yokogawa, very famous group, Yokogawa Hewlett Packard, YHP. We became YGE, Yokogawa General Electric.
Huh.
And with Yokogawa, we became number 1 in the Japanese market for a period of time, ahead of Toshiba, ahead of Hitachi, Shimazu, etc.
Didn't you go on to work for Toshiba later on?
Very exciting. I'm sorry?
Didn't you go on to be a senior vice president at Toshiba later on?
Yes, absolutely.
Very
Yes,
nice.
well, they knew me. They knew me very well.
Exactly.
By the way, but I'll tell you an interesting thing. While I was fighting them in CT, I was also their partner in medical equipment having to do with, what do they call it? Cardiac type systems. So we were already working with them
Right.
at that time. So, but in CT, we were enemies.
So I think it's interesting how in these huge companies, you could be collaborators and partners on some fields, but then you have other market aspects where you're complete competitors, and
Absolutely.
it's a natural thing, right?
By the way, it took a lot of trust.
I'm sure.
A lot of trust, and no one violated that trust.
Wow.
Another thing that was very important in those days to again become the leader of in the world market was to get a position in China. And I led a team to China, and we won to get the very first whole body scanner into the China market in Beijing Hospital, 1980. And that was really exciting. I cannot tell you, because everyone was there for that. Everyone wanted it.
I'm
There
sure.
were 8 companies, and I was asked, do you want to be first or last? I said, I'll be last going in.
Wait. Paint me the picture. There's 8 companies pitching to this hospital.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to hear
Pitching.
the story. Tell me the story again.
Well, there were 8, and we came in last.
As in, literally, you walked last into the room to show your product.
Well, it was over a period of weeks.
Okay.
Yes, we came in to show them what we could do.
Right.
And at the end of that, they said, we want to go to contract.
Wow.
So I sent my team home. I worked in the embassy, the U.S. Embassy in Beijing,
Wow.
worked up the contracts, sent the contracts home. And the team, that was by fax, if you remember, in
Wow.
those days, there was nothing else. And the team looked at it and they turned it down. They turned down the deal. And that's when I made one of the biggest decisions of my lifetime. I said, I'm signing this deal anyway. And I signed it subject to approval by Senior Vice President Dr. Walter L. Robb. I then went home with the documents, put it on the table, and there was the whole senior team. And Walt Robb looked at the document, never even looked up to the other guys at the table, took the pen and signed it. Now, how did I know that he would probably do that? We did not communicate. His boss was Jack Welch. If Jack Welch found out that he had in his hands the opportunity to take China and he turned it down, that would not have been a good thing. Unfortunately, by the way, both Welch and Walt Robb passed away over the last year. 2 spectacular people.
But I have to ask, did you think through this as you were sitting in the embassy and you were wondering, should I, go alone in this battle? And because the outcome could have been you come home, you bring this to the table, and you could get fired.
And you get fired. Yes, you know what? That would have been worthwhile because then I'd make a big deal of that story, that's for sure. No, it was obviously, you got to always look at, no matter what level you're at, what is the right thing to do? And you have to understand the players that you're working with, that you report to. And that's why I'm saying it was one of the most incredible experiences. On that plane home, I was just so exhilarated about what that scene was going to be when I came in there. Why did they turn it down? They turned it down because of the fact that they're very conservative. They worked for GE all their lives. Taking on the China deal was a major risk. People in large companies don't take on large risks.
Right.
I'm a semiconductor guy. I was only around for 4 to 5 years. For me, this is the way we did things in the semiconductor world.
Right.
Right? Everything was a risk.
Everything was a risk.
Anyway, that was just terrific.
Wow.
I then ended up running the X-ray business at GE. And then an opportunity came up in the area of MRI. And a company called Diasonics came after me. Turns out the CEO, a very close friend of mine from years back in school, asked me to run the MRI division of Diasonics. They already had X-ray systems and they had ultrasound. And that brought me to California. And it brought me to another program. By the way, that CT scanner, I forgot to mention, we did the final development at UCSF.
Were you? No, you studied your bachelor somewhere else.
Milwaukee. GE was in Milwaukee.
Okay.
However, we worked with the main site at UCSF, also a site in Milwaukee.
Okay.
But with Diasonics, again, I came back to UCSF.
So you knew the way.
Yes. And the research team that we had was from UCSF.
Okay.
Dr. Leon Kaufman and his team were a group within UCSF that came and worked with us. And who was my major competitor? GE.
So when you're at GE, your biggest competitor was Toshiba. When you're at Diasonics, your biggest competitor is GE.
Yes.
And when you're in Toshiba, who's your biggest competitor?
The world.
The world.
No, again, it was GE.
Of course.
GE, Siemens, and Philips. And the beautiful thing about the MRI business for us is that I realized we're a small company. If we're a small company, universities are very expensive to work with. So we can only be very focused on a few of them. Then there's the hospital market.
Right.
They're much too conservative to buy from us.
Yeah.
Because we're a risk for them. But then there's the private market. We created the private market. Those are private docs who feel MRI is just what they want, and they wanted it for shoulders. They wanted it for hips.
Okay.
They didn't want to do brain work like the universities would do.
Right.
And we went after the private market. And
Wow.
that made us second in the United States only to General Electric.
Wow.
It was an incredible situation. The other thing we did is we sold them on a pay-per-study basis. We created that at that time. So instead of spending $2 or $3 million for the whole system, we put the system in. We had a finance company work with us on that. But we made our bread from the paper study.
Interesting. What does that mean, paper study?
Oh, for every study that they do, they pay us.
Incredible.
Per study.
I love that. I love that model. Yeah.
Well, today it's called subscription. It's called all kinds of things.
Right.
But back in 1983, it didn't exist except for us.
Wow.
The other thing that happened, there was a place, MD Anderson is a very famous center, by the way, located in Texas. They wanted an MRI. And we were working with a group called Texas Medical Equipment, another a player in the private market who had a number of sites. our sites. So they put in our system into a building near MD Anderson, and we then supplied MD Anderson.
Wow.
The other thing we did is we had vans. We put a system in a van. We'd roll that van around the community. The docs in each of those sites would have a workstation of ours inside the hospital. So just picture this, Michael. Customer comes into the van. The imagery is taken. It's sent, streamed. A lot of streaming today. We were streaming then, 1984, 1985.
There was no internet back then.
Streaming it inside the hospital. And inside the hospital, the doctor just went to the workstation, which was next door to his office. As far as he was concerned, the system was in the hospital.
Incredible. Incredible.
It was really incredible.
Incredible. Ron, you know, we have just a few minutes left, and it's such a unique privilege to be able to speak to somebody who's really a pioneer in all of these devices. You know, my girlfriend's father is a radiologist, so I'm getting exposed to all these incredible devices and technology, and all of a sudden I get to speak to somebody who helped bring them to market. You know, back in the day, and I'd love to get your input. What earned secrets or what insight do you have from your impressive career over the last 35 years in this industry? What can I take away as a young entrepreneur from your experiences?
Well, the first thing is vision.
Mm-hmm.
And an example of vision is when I saw the opportunity to, instead of having flat images, have images in open 3D space, where the doctor can interact with the object.
Right.
Just think about swimming through your brain as opposed to being only able to see a flat image of your brain.
Right.
It makes all the difference in the world. Having that kind of a vision got us into something called interactive mixed reality.
Yeah.
Now becoming a very big thing. We've been at it for 5 or 6 years already. The other thing is being a dot collector, a connector. What is a dot connector? Well, there's radiology, there's surgery, and realizing that radiology and surgery need to come together. So when we showed them this open 3D space imaging, and a radiologist said, oh, with this I can speak intelligently to a surgeon. And then a surgeon said, just a month later, wow, I've never used a workstation before. I said, why not? He said, I've never opened up a patient and seen a 2D view.
Right.
Right? Everything's 3D in surgery.
Yeah.
So our technology was the bridge between radiology and surgery.
Wow.
We've given so many papers on that, and that's why we're leading in that whole area. And the last point is being a coach. Being a director coach, I think, is my life from now on. And I'm already involved in a number of startups which will utilize the technology from the company EchoPixel, where they're looking things in open 3D space. One is scoliosis. You have to use 3 dimensions in scoliosis. And the reason they have so many problems is because they use 2-dimensional views and things like that.
Right.
So those are the aspects that I think are all very important. Vision, being a dot connector, and being a coach.
Ron, are those the 3 words that you would choose also for yourself, of how you would describe yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
I love it.
I'm always looking for dots.
So visionary, dot connector, and the last one?
And the last one is coach.
The last one is coach. Ron, I want to take this opportunity to thank you again for your generous time. Inspiring to hear how you helped lead this industry, and I think it's just so much fun that you got to work with all these different companies who ended up being competitors to each other in the world, yet you always came out on top. So I think that shows quite a bit about the visionary, the dot connectedness, and the coach that you bring with you. Ron, thank you very much. I wanted to get to talk also about you're very involved with J Ventures that we're both at. We didn't get to that. But definitely it's great to have you there, and I love learning from you all the time through all the work we do there. So thank you again, and have a great day and stay healthy.
Thank you so much. You too.
Take care. Bye bye.